Yes.
So we had a public meeting in Palo last week or two ago about PFAS. So
Yeah,
you ready?
Okay, let's go.
Everybody. I mean,
Oh, exactly, really, it's true. It's all right. You recording?
Yep. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, March 23rd monthly meeting of the Greater Augusta Utility District. Let's tonight start out by gonna have some guests here tonight, so we'll do a full introduction. Let's start out with board members. I'm starting on my left here.
Bob Corey, that's a trustee.
Cecil Munson, Augusta trustee.
Patrick Parity, Augusta trustee.
Keith Taylor, Hollowell trustee.
Kara Walker, Hollowell trustee, non-voting.
Good evening. Brent Sawyer, Augusta trustee.
Keith Luke, non-voting, Augusta trustee.
Augusta trustee.
Ken Knight, Augusta trustee. Let's now go to employees. Oh, God.
Mike Payne, finance director. Andy Kingan, assistant general manager.
Brian Charbot, gentlemen.
And consultants we have on tonight.
Go ahead. All right, I'm going to go first. I'm Meredith Strang-Burgess, and your communications consultant. And tonight, I would like to let Christina, who joined us a couple months ago, introduce herself.
Yes, thanks, Meredith. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Ilaria. I'm a new account executive here at Burgess. Excited to be working with you all.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Alan Burton, Human Resources Consultant.
Okay, we have some guests with us tonight, and the one on screen too. No, start right here with you, sir.
Hi, everybody. I met a couple of you before we started. My name is Jamie Bello. I'm an attorney in Maine. I practice out of Auburn, Maine. I'm born and raised in Wilson. Been practicing for 30 years.
Anybody else we need to introduce?
We have all kinds of people.
Yeah, it's full house tonight. Coral?
So hi, this is Paul Napoli from Napoli Skolnick, and I work with James Ballou, and I have two of my partners on the line, Jay Simpson out of New York and Coral Odia as well.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Evening. Who else we got there? Mike on there?
Yes, I am on, Brian.
Welcome, Mike Hodges, corporate counsel. Anybody else from this?
Very good.
I can't read that.
I think you got it.
You got
Okay.
Yeah, there's Randy's on there. There's interested public.
So tonight, agenda additions. We're going to move our agenda around. We're going to start out with the minutes from last month, I mean, and then our rate committee and rate setting discussion tonight and vote, and then we'll up the PFAS litigation. We'll move right after the rate, and we'll move to the PFAS here because it changes here and everybody's online. We'll move that up tonight, so they have to sit through the whole meeting. So let's get started with the whole business and approval of meeting minutes.
Move to accept the board minutes meetings for February 23rd.
Second, Jim, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Passes. Okay, next is the rate committee update, and I think we'll let Bob and probably Brian and Mike talk, but Bob maybe take off for this.
The committee met March 11th of this month to go over the package. I think that Mike and Brian put together a very good package, covering everything that we need to know. It's time to right there to know what we're looking at and knowing everything. The committee has been recommending 3% every time we talk to you about this stuff. And it's now time for the board to make a decision on how we're going to fund what the budget that we do. Turn it over to Brian and Mike.
Sure, I'll start up. Go to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind, please. This is calendar, should be familiar to everybody by now. This is driven predominantly, well, this is driven by specific deadlines that are set by the Public Utilities Commission. Somewhere in here, I have a date that, I'm sorry. So April 27th is the rate public hearing that drives all the other dates. You can see the timeline. So the job tonight is to identify the rate that you would like to bring to the Public Utilities Commission. We don't set the rate until after we have hearings and the PUC and public advocate review it. If they have any questions or need to have further review, they can delay it and so on and so forth. So with the sewer and stormwater, we just ride that same schedule just to make it easy and less confusing to ratepayers. The way sewer and stormwater works, you're not PUC regulated. You could just basically have a public hearing, motion, second vote, and you set your rates. Very, very simple compared to the PUC process. But I just want to remind everybody of that we are following that for all three different divisions. And that's the timeline. Are there any questions about that? I don't think there are, because we've been talking about it now since December.
Could you remind us that when we voted on the budget for this year, that it needed to be funded different? It wasn't not 5 budgets that we approved, so that we did pass a budget that's going to need some sort of rate increase. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, you can, let's say you did a 0% rate increase for each of the three divisions this year. The budget that was set back in December can basically, we can pay for everything this year, but it's not sustainable. So how that declines with different rate percentages as we go forward in the next few slides. But yeah, for this year, if you did absolutely nothing, you'd still be okay. For the following year, but you'd be in trouble subsequent years.
It backs us into that, to the big rate increases.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want everybody to.
That's the whole point here.
And one thing on that we usually, when we do the O&M budget and compare that, we don't build in rate increases into those revenues. So if we don't do one, or PUC doesn't approve one, or at least the budget's set without a rate increase. So,
yeah.
Capital projects is the big one that drives, and we come and ask for a rate increase for next year.
So what are we recommending, and what are we going to ask the board to vote on?
Got a couple slides. We're going to review those if all right with everybody. We have shown here for the drinking water division. The easiest thing for you to see is the chart on the right that plots out the next 3 years, including inclusive of 26. So you'll see 26, 27, 28, and that's basically our minimum cash reserve. You can see if we did 0, that's option 1. The blue is 2026. It doesn't look so bad. Red is next year, 27. Green, we're pretty much out of cash. And if we do nothing, we just burn cash pretty quickly. The next option to consider is 3%. Obviously, you don't burn cash quite as quickly. And then 7% is another option where you burn cash even more slowly. If you're looking at long-term stabilization of rates and you don't want that whipsaw effect of going from a low number to a high number, to a low number to a high number, then establishing a higher number now prevents that or minimizes the risk of that later. None of us here can predict what's going to happen in the next year. We don't pretend to. The most conservative approach from where I sit is at least give up a 7% rate, and that way we can fund what we need to do for the longest period of time. And then if we come into some financial largesse, then that'll ameliorate later rates in the future. Our experience shows the opposite, is that those expenses continue to climb, and there's not a lot we can do about that, whether it's fuel or steel or pavement. That's how that goes. So that's the water division. Next slide is sewer or wastewater. Same thing. You see a 0, a 3, and a 7. In this case, the 7 is looking fairly optimistic in the outer years. So you may say, well, I don't really need to raise that kind of money, but I guarantee that I can easily put all that money right back into relining pipes and taking care of the wastewater treatment plant. You recall this year, we put something on the order of $900,000 into the wastewater treatment plant, and we think that we'll spend all of that and then some, because we found some issues that have popped up at just the last month. And one of our primary clarifiers had an issue that we're going to have to try to fix. We think we can do it internally. It's not, it'll be expensive. Can't really run the plant efficiently without it. So just an example of something we didn't see in December that's cropped up now. And then the last one, stormwater division, kind of similar to sewer. So you can see that stormwater and wastewater in slightly different financial positions than we have in the drinking water division. You have to remember that sewer and stormwater intertwined, as well as water to some degree, where we buy a dump truck or we use that on water main breaks or sewer projects and everything. We build that between the three divisions more or less equally. The same goes with vacuum trucks and other equipment. So we run into situations where one division will have a little extra money, but we can't buy equipment if it's shared with the other two divisions because those two divisions don't have them. And so these things make it very difficult for us on capital improvements. And again, you're looking here at 0 at the top, 3 in the middle, and 7 at the bottom. One thing I want to note is that later today, you're going to see a note from Andy about a project on Memorial Circle to be, I don't know, probably a couple $1 million by the time it's, more than that by the time it's all done. So we may borrow money to pay for that. That's part of our 35-year long-term control plan. Now, you may remember that that's our long-range plan to reduce the amount of sewer that discharges to the river during wet weather events. The snow melts, it becomes water, the water goes into the sewer in some cases, and sometimes the sewer can't handle it and flows out into the river, and nobody likes that. So, and it's not legal for us to do that. EPA and then DEP have been on us for 35 years about it. We've done this without consent orders. We've had a lot of good grant opportunities. This proposed project we're going to talk about in now probably 20, 30 minutes or so. It goes into detail about how we're going to separate a lot of these catch basins. They're combined right now, and then we'll further our efforts to try to keep the river clean. So
Just a quick question about this. So the expenditures for these CSO upgrades, do they go to stormwater or
a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yep, because there's no unintended, no way to separate the two, you know. So if we put in a new stormwater pipe to take care of a sewer problem, it's both the sewer and the stormwater problem. And Mike Hudgens, who's online with us tonight, he and I spent a lot of time in Superior Court explaining that to the court and how that all works. But there almost always is an apportionment between those two different divisions, which is only fair. In the long run, if you then just have a separated stormwater pipe, then 50 years from now, our successors will go fix that, and it'll just be a stormwater expense and the sewer piece.
Thanks.
Yeah. So those are the 3 different divisions and 3 different options. So if you want to scroll back to the water slide, not a theme park. As soon as I said water slide, I excited it. But anyway, looking at this, I would recommend you go with 7. We go with 3. I don't think you're going to be set up sustainably for very long at 3%. Honestly, we have significant expenses on the water side. If we can tease this out, you can't really see it on this particular slide, but we have about half the money that we really need for replacing pipes every year. So to try to keep that up, we need more money early on to try to do that. We're right now investing something on the order of $2 million a year in pipe. And I think when I checked the other day for 2027 CIP, I had $15 million in needs. And it just keeps cascading. Every year we don't do it, that need increases because it costs more than inflation and whatnot. So that would be my advice on that one. If you look at the next slide, you could get away with probably closer to between 3 and 5. That will leave that in cash balance at something that's relatively flat. If you're closer to 5, 7 is optimistic, but that would also, if you said we'll do 7% now, there's a lot of realigning I can do with that as well. So it's not like if we had that money, we wouldn't know what to do with it. It's more or less already spent. It's just a matter of how many pipes they can realign. And then the same with stormwater. Stormwater would be, if you went with 3, that holds status quo. We know we have significant stormwater costs coming up, and those realigning efforts are in the queue. You remember, I know it's a lot for you guys to remember, but in 2031, we have debt service that comes off from the Mill Park project. Some of you guys really remember the Mill Park project, which is downtown, just across the river. We have twin 670-foot long culverts underneath the park. Those are used to intercept combined sewer before it goes to the river. Work exceptionally well, ferociously expensive. Replaced 2 pump stations. None of those flood anymore. We're in much better shape after having done that. That was the one Mike I went to court for. It was a good time. But the bottom line with that is that service was significant to the tune of something $880,000 a year principal and interest along those lines. So when that falls off, that will certainly help. So the difference with sewer and stormwater is that we have a window where we're going to enjoy that benefit of having that ability to spend that money to reline as much stormwater pipe as we can, because that's way more expensive than relining the smaller sewer pipes. So, but just keep that in mind too. Anything you do is pretty well arbitrary. There's no rules here. You have a fiduciary responsibility to the ratepayers, and I think we've said it once, we've said it 100 times, kind of pay me now, pay me later. If we set a lower rate now, last year was 3.2 for everything, then that just means we'll have a slightly higher rate later. We want to further those operational and capital improvement objectives we've talked about for the whole setting.
If you back up to the water slide. So what we did in the bottom left-hand corner, so at this point, if we went with 7%, that bottom left-hand where it says 261, that's in kind of orange colored, that's the average monthly increase for a typical household. So we basically have shown that for water, sewer, and storm. It comes up to, I think it's $7.30.
$2.01.
That's for that's for water. If you go to that slide. Sewer would be about 380, and then storm is about 91 cents. So typical household.
The difference being, of course, fire protection for the city of Augusta, they pay something on the order of $1 million a year. So 7% increase, another 70 grand. We all know, a lot of you folks have been on city council or school boards. Everybody knows how tight those budgets are. So that's a challenge. I'll remind everybody too, that even though we have our fiscal spending year is calendar year, we've opted as a board, to change our rate setting to match that of the county and our city partners, knowing that we can be a lot more nimble than they can be. So we advised them some time ago that they should be looking at about a 5% rate increase. I think they can tolerate that plus or minus 2%, but it's getting to be go time for them in terms of their ED 279 school costs and et cetera, they have to deal with as well. So
Yeah, they're under a lot of pressure. I did talk to the city manager last week, and he can probably tolerate 7%, but like the 5 a lot better. But again, we're the ones that have to decide that. He said, not him, and that's kind of where they are. Whatever he knew is he's been told, so it's not like this is new. They're surprised, definitely told. And so I just hear if anybody has some questions for them, because we're going to be looking for some sort of response, whether we do 7 across the board, or we do 7 for water and some other numbers for that, or whatever number you got, just board chooses. So it's anybody question? Wow.
Several things on this. Again, it's important to understand these figures that are out there. It doesn't show the rate increase. Don't see the dollars coming in to reflect from the 6 months, 5 months a year on that thing. On the 7% increase on everything, they're showing the our target reserve for the stormwater is 375. It will end up at 2.9 million using that rate for the next 3 years. Tax reserve. Same thing for the stormwater. It's our target is 375. It will be at 1 million this year, and at the end of 3 years, it's still going to be $1 million on that thing. And again, our reserve is 375. And that reserve is there to cover things, but it's not being covered now. The same thing, the water reserve is 750, and that one really does look like it. At the end of those 3 years, it's 775. So you got to remember also in this thing, real estate taxes are being reassessed. Reassessed for everybody out there. The city is going to be depending a lot more on residential. That's going to go up. Commercial's coming down. The city sets the mill levy. That's the most important thing. Out there is the mill levy that's down. And whether it's $5 million or $1 million, $2 million, or whatever, for a good amount for the commercial on that. And again, they're going to see some benefits, but that's part of that will go down in commercial. The real estate is not. I just ran the numbers. My own house. Just saying what I pay now with the mill levy, where it's at. And the mill levy would have to be cut greater than 50% for me to be paying the same taxes this year. You're not gonna see the city cut a mill levy by 12 points, or whatever, more than 50%, on that thing. I think we were going the right way. Keeping the thing set, we went to 3-2 last year, we're kind of, it took us a while, we got set up. We need to do something every year. And when you borrow, the borrowing, you gotta understand, for the rate, for that, it's important. It's important to have that there. If the rates are way low, it's a very good thing. If they're high, it's not a good thing, to be doing it that way. But that's out there, to be covered for those things. The project, they can come up, you guys can come up with many projects on that thing, on the list of projects that's in your package, shows you that, and out there. Should be able to increase, even more, if you go to 7%, you're gonna be able to increase business, you're gonna be doing it this year. So, Great Committee recommended 3, pretty much through the thing. I personally could live with 5, I can't live with 7. Not with what's happening out there, but in this time, that area, this, the public, the repairs, being hit with so many things. We're still an increase and we're getting some dollars in there. So I think my learning fee is gonna be 5%.
It seems like stormwater, particularly with respect to cash, balance, is really quite different than the other two. So I don't know, is there any benefit to keeping the rate the same for all 3 sources, wastewater, water, and stormwater, or can we have them vary?
Stormwater, at the same point, if I understand correct, the shorter rates and the stormwater, they're gonna get tied together because they're gonna use both, they need both of those for the funding. One is out of money, nearly out of money, when the other ones can't come in.
Right.
Also, so it does affect them, but they really need to say that.
The 3 rates are independent though.
Right.
Yeah, right, whatever increase we do, yes.
So you don't have to do the same number across the board.
Correct. Nope, not at all.
We don't have any input. Wait a second.
Well, I look at the water thing, that bothers me. That's the one that I struggle with. I'm looking at it right now. The other two, you know, I was listening to Bob, and I was on the rate committee. We looked at 3 across the board. I could see a 753. I could see that, given what I see on the water and given where, how many, you got a 100-year-old pipe that you talked about tonight.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we've got pipes now. When I first started here, everybody thought if you had pipes 100 years old, it's the end of days. We know we have pipes downtown Augusta that were installed in the 1880s, and they're still going strong. They're very, very thick cast iron, but when they fail, they're gonna fail in a very big way.
The point is, there's enough of that around it.
There's a lot.
Maybe we short them. And we don't know what the price is gonna happen. We don't know what's gonna happen with the market. I have no idea. It's just like a big black hole. We don't know. It could be nothing, it could be something. So that's for me. You know, I'd like to stay at 3. That's where I'm at. 25 cents.
Anybody else?
Just I bug Brian all the time about this stuff. The work that he and his people do, they only see it because there's a truck there, a backhoe, and that type of thing. They don't know anything about that. And, you know, seeing is believing. And I think we need to publicize that some of that piping, like he said, is 1885. They don't see it because it's underground. And if we do some little every month or so, a picture of that and say, we're doing this is the stuff we found. This are the things that, you know, they've been there a long time and they're really good, but they do break. And when they break, you see the truck there for a week or so, and then you don't see it anymore. So it's like, we need to show that we're having to repair, not because we choose to, you know, it's like, it's old, we have to, and everything. And it's, for a lot of people, they don't, I never get a question about GAUD. You know, I mean, I talk to people in Augusta every day, and they never bring up the issue about that. When I was on the council, they would, Cecil can back me and you can do, that they would fit everything, you know, they watch it on TV and they see it in the paper and that type of thing. So worried about it, but We need to let them know that we're trying as best as we can and within the money that we can ask for. To meet the prices, because it's like, oh, that water's gone, you know, well, you can't say, well, we'll fix that next fiscal year. We have to do it right away, that type of thing. We know that, but they don't know it because they just turn it on and they pay their bills. That's, you know.
I can see this, yeah. Sewer slide, back one.
So yeah, as a reminder, topmost chart, 3 did nothing at 0. 3 is the middle, 7 is
No, I
back. So
wouldn't.
if you're looking at 5 would be.
I wanted to see the sewer slide.
Yep, that's the
And
one.
wastewater.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I see it. Yeah, 3. So the green line out there, what, I can't read that, that's like,
2028.
I know, but
I'm
what,
sorry.
what's the cash on that?
That would show you're holding around $1.5 million at the end.
Well, okay, I'm gonna say that, I'm gonna go revise what I said, 733.
Okay, anybody else have some comment? Anybody else? I would like to, we have a motion here. It says,
Yeah.
we approve, so how do we need to be moving to that and the water increase, and it also includes the sewer and the stormwater. So does somebody have a motion, want to put some numbers to that motion?
I'm more still in discussion mode.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think I hear the nexus of Keith's question, and don't let me put words in your mouth, of the benefit of the same number is public understanding. And we know spending the money is not an issue. We could triple the budget and Andy would have a big smile and the system fixed. But I think there is some legitimacy to easy communication that people understand. I'm willing to support a number of things here, not 7s, but I could do 5s across the board. I think there's going to be a considerable drop in federal funding in the next 15 months. I think it's a good time to bolster some cash on hand because who knows what's coming. I think 5, with the conversation we're having, 5 strikes the balance well. So I'm not a no vote on a different motion, but I'm comfortable with 5s across the board.
Anybody else?
I'd be comfortable with 5.
5 across the board? Well,
Let's put it to the vote and see what they're ready to think about. I can make a motion.
good.
Move to approve the proposed same PUC water rate by an increase of 5%. I also move to approve the proposed sewer rate at 5% and the stormwater rate at 5%.
Do I hear a second? Second by Tim. Is there any discussion on this motion? Go ahead, Cecil.
I still have trouble with the 5 on the stormwater, on the stormwater. I still think we're good in cash with 3.
But Keith,
I guess with all due respect to what Brad was saying, I'm looking at this, and if we could say they aren't all the same, if we could say somewhat less, we could say, oh, we only raised it to 3%. I agree with Cecil about the stormwater too. If I was a,
we can make can amend the motion.
I'm just saying, if I was a customer and looked at the charts, I said, cash balance looks fine, why are we increasing?
Yeah, if I may,
Yes.
later on, I'm gonna show you $1.5 million of stormwater. That cost. Keep that in mind, please.
Yeah.
Next year, we could be asking for 12.
Well, the motion on the table with the second right now is for 5 across the board. Somebody can amend the motion if they want to, but otherwise, I'm gonna get ready to call this and more discussion. I'm gonna call a vote. I'm gonna call a vote. Motion stands at everything 5%. What is it? Votes yes. Who's opposed?
Opposed.
So just,
Yeah, so the motion passes.
okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
5 across the board?
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
Okay, moving on, we're gonna move to change the agenda around, as I said, so now, item F is gonna become the next one here, so we're gonna do the PFAS litigation options, what day on the calendar, this is on the agenda tonight, put it on the first page here, well, stuff to that, Keith Taylor, provided us information, this is put on the agenda tonight for a vote to go up or down with this tonight. We talked about last month, we have some people here, Jamie's here, and some other people, of course, on the, what we see here on the screen there. Our corporation council is here as well, so, Brian, I think we might as well kick this off and any highlights from the last, what has changed, really not much change from the last, the fact that, we got everybody here to talk to it. You know, I hope everybody, knows what we're being asked to do, looking at, some legal, upstream people that could have contaminated some of our influences our aquifer, which is the Kennebec River. Just be aware of today that as we sit here and speak, we discharge water into the Kennebec River from, actually treat everything in our store, and we put PFAS into the water today, so just be aware of that. Also, you know, I think that the other part of this is, he had some, I don't know if everybody read that packet. Keith, I meant to talk a little bit about that, and kind of talk about your letter we sent to us and some other things that are going on. And let's get into this and get people here to talk to, and we got people to ask questions, so anybody with questions can do it. So Keith.
Oh, sure.
I'll let you.
Yeah, there are really two issues here. One is just for background, and those who don't know, I was a contaminant hydrogeologist, so this was literally my job. It was PFAS contamination. And in terms of the proposed, I'll just call it the Kennebec River lawsuit. Technically speaking, it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to pinpoint where any PFAS is coming from or when it might have entered the aquifer. And it is important to note that there are also public wastewater treatment plants upstream of us, just like GAUD is one, which discharge PFAS. So I think in terms of proceeding through a lawsuit where you have witnesses and depositions and all of that, I think it would be very unlikely that you could prove that any particular commercial entity is the source of your contamination. Now, I'm not a lawyer. There might be, you know, gray spots in there, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing. But that was kind of my technical opinion. More I thought about this also. I don't want this to come out wrong, but I kind of see this lawsuit as kind of like blackmail in a way, because these big companies are going to know, this is my opinion, these big companies are going to know that there's no way GAUD could prove that they're the source. But they don't want to have to go through the public relations trouble, getting their lawyers going, the cost of litigation. We'll just settle out of court, which is, I think, very common, happens all the time. I just personally don't like that concept. And in particular, this would be a good segue. I've been speaking to a law firm in New Hampshire, and they're representing probably about a dozen main wastewater treatment plants. And they are going to have a class action. I don't know if it's class action. Again, I'm not a lawyer. They're going to have a lawsuit against the manufacturers of PFAS, 3M and DuPont, for damages from the high cost of sludge disposal, because sludge cannot be spread on fields anymore and has to go to landfills, or even off in Canada. Prices are high. It's going to be like that for a long time. So that's the basics of this lawsuit. Up from law firm in New Hampshire, again, representing about a dozen main wastewater treatment plants. I did ask if any kind of money we've received in previous PFAS lawsuits would keep us from participating, and they said no. And I said we would talk about it here today, and probably would want more information.
Okay. Well, anybody else have anything you want to comment? Do you want to get people here to talk about? So Cecil, go ahead.
We know, you don't measure PFAS that's coming out of the sewer plant, right? You don't know what it is.
We have, and
What level it is?
it's variable. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. I don't know. DP did some analysis a while back. Anything in the river has PFAS in it already, but our customers take showers, they wash clothes. Our customers are sources of PFAS. It all comes through our wastewater treatment plant. There's nothing we can do to remove PFAS from wastewater and off to the river.
Well, you know,
So, but the specific levels off the top of my head, I'll find out.
well, I'm just curious just where it was because could the, not a lawyer, I don't know, but somebody makes an argument that because you're dumping this stuff in the river, how can you sue somebody else? And that's what I think I hear from.
Yeah, I don't, doesn't make sense to me that,
Well,
not
that's
seeing
what I'm
anybody,
hearing.
yeah, not suing anybody wouldn't give you immunity either, right? So you'd be sued by anybody, anytime or anything.
So, but the people south of us could claim we're property. They can sue us.
Perhaps one of the lawyers that is here
Yeah,
can explain more. And let us, yes, a great policy.
So,
Let's see.
thanks. You don't mind, I'm just sitting all day. If I stand up and I'm not very tall, so, a couple things. You have to know what you should do, if anything, with respect to this PFAS contaminant, right? And there's different buckets that Paul and his team will explain way better than me. But I want to be able to help the decision because I'm the main guy in town and I'm the one who's worked with Paul. So to help you is, I've been practicing for 30 years. And Mike Hodgins knows me very well. And I've known Mike for a long time. I represent a lot of municipalities. I do a lot of general civil litigation as well. How do I know the Napoli firm and Paul? Everybody remembers the national class action opiate litigation. Well, I teamed up with Paul's team, who were the leaders in the industry. There's probably, Paul will know better than me, 2 or 3 firms, maybe 6, that took the lead on the opiate litigation and sued the distributors, manufacturers, you name it, the different parts. And I was tasked, because I don't have the expertise or resources like these national firms do, but I did my due diligence with Paul's firm because I'm a Mainer and I'm the one who's going to make the pitch like I am to you guys, using Paul and his team in his area of expertise. So I did that, and I've worked with Paul and his team in the opiate litigation. I represent Augusta, I represent Kennebec, I think we represent 12 of the counties, we represent Portland, every city and town that you can think of. My firm, in conjunction with Paul's, did the opiate litigation. So if I wouldn't hook my wagon to Paul and put my reputation and face in front of Maine people and Maine towns and communities and boards like you, if I didn't trust them and had a relationship with them. And even though they do the legwork and they've got the team and the expertise, I signed the pleadings in Maine, I review the pleadings in Maine, and I'm responsible for it. So that's the relationship I have with Paul. Him and his team can explain the other things about what your options are, but let me say a couple things. There's always a feeling of, well, the lawyers just want to sue everybody. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's really not important. But let me give you, when I was at City of Lewiston giving my pitch on my bid, one guy said, well, you're going to sue Coca-Cola next. And I said, I don't know. It depends on if there's a claim and it depends on what it is. But the point is, if you don't put your hand in like the opiate litigation, you're not getting any money. Everyone else is doing it. We represent your organization in the 3M zone. We made a claim for you folks. We've already done that. The pollution by these 5 entities, Paul's done cases across the country. He can talk about whether you can pinpoint it. The wastewater side is very interesting. I'm meeting with a very large wastewater facility tomorrow because Paul and I have been talking about doing a class action on the wastewater side. It's going to happen, and I've met with them. They also said the same thing. We're going to get sued. We handle sludge every day. And the answer is, to be honest, maybe. Right? It's true, maybe. But if you don't, it's not going to be because you filed the claim. It's because everyone else is going to be filing claims. So even though I think that's an important issue for you to consider, you know, you don't want to be, your ratepayers don't want to be outside looking in and wondering whether or not you could recover some money that's involved in a national complex litigation, so you can get it back and give to the ratepayers. And if you're making that decision mostly because you're concerned you're gonna get sued, because you're gonna get sued if someone wants to do it anyways. That's the reality. Paul's team, I said enough. I just want you, to me, you should know who I am and what I stand for. And that's important to me. And I can live with myself saying that to you folks being here. Paul's team's got the expertise, and Paul, it sounds like one, Keith, who's a hydrogeologist, which means you're way smarter than I am, thinks you'd have a hard time pinpointing the source in the mill case is number one. He has some concerns about how it looks. We've heard that before. And then there's this wastewater thing that you and I have been talking about for months about where that's going next. So if you don't mind, they're the experts.
Let me address all of them, and I hope everybody could hear me. And when I started the opioid litigation, I heard the same thing. How are you going to prove this case? How did it go from pills to heroin? And how are communities going to get money? $65 billion later, we proved the case on public nuisance. I've been doing environmental cases for my whole career, almost 35 years. And not only environmental cases, but PFAS cases. And how do I prove the case? The first stage in handling the case was suing the manufacturers themselves. 3M, DuPont, Tyco, BASF. That first stage is done. I negotiated the settlements, with Coral and two other lawyers, for $15+ billion, which is some of the monies you've seen already. We already represent you in PFAS. Our second stage that we're doing, that's come into play because the law has changed to our benefit in the last 3 years, is pursuing the users of PFAS. And that is not unusual to sue users of chemicals under what's called CERCLA. It's a federal Superfund law that allows you to pursue the polluters. The polluters pay. And we prove these things time and time again, whether it's in a river, released in a river, or released in groundwater. One of the biggest cases in PFAS was on the Ohio River, and 4 municipalities received almost, with the community, almost $800 million. Not today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but 10 years ago. So there is precedent for this. We have a community that we represented recently on Long Island, that the first phase of the settlement, that manufacturing piece, they received $8 million for their 10 wells that were out. We pursued a CERCLA claim against manufacturers in the community and got another $74 million from these corporations' insurers. So not only did they recover the $8 million from the manufacturing settlement, but they got an additional $74 million. This is where the bulk of the money, and I sat and listened to the beginning of the board meeting, and cash is always an issue. This is one way to take the cost from the constituents and put it back on the polluters. There are legacy paper mills upriver that we believe are responsible. We get hydrogeologists. They look at the source water area. They'll look at the intakes. They'll look upriver. They can do contaminant projections, and it's EPA approved. Jay, one of my partners, worked for the EPA. He did just this for the EPA. He's also worked at the state level. And we have a team of experts that did it not only in the Long Island case, but are doing it on a number of cases. You would not be the first one to file the case. And you would not be the first one to be concerned about also being sued. The EPA itself is also concerned about municipalities being fearful that their wastewater treatment or even their drinking water being used by the community or being recharged would be considered a PRP or a source of contamination. So what did the EPA do? They issued a letter about 2 years ago and said, we are not going to pursue municipalities, airports. We're not going to pursue their fire training centers. We're not going to sue their wastewater treatment facilities. We, in short, are not going to pursue municipalities because they're innocent, de minimis, and that's a key word under CERCLA. They have no responsibility, and we're not going to hold them responsible. We're going to hold the manufacturers responsible, and we're going to hold the insurers of these companies who use their products responsible. And how do we know that the EPA wants to hold these manufacturers responsible? Because in the Trump administration, instead of deregulating, they actually added PFAS to the CERCLA, as a hazardous substance for the purpose of making the polluter pay. They reconsidered in September in District Court of Columbia in DC, they reconsidered whether or not they should remove PFAS as a hazardous substance. And we were part of that briefing in front of the MDL. And the Trump administration and the EPA determined, no, PFAS is too important. We need to clean it up. We're not holding wastewater treatments responsible. As a matter of fact, I know SNL Environmental is running around Maine. Jamie and I have represented almost every single county in Maine. My stepfather is from Bangor. So we ran around together Maine for opioids. I started the first wastewater treatment case 6 years ago. The wastewater treatment case is already filed for a number of wastewater treatment facilities. And it's teed up in front of Judge Gergel, where I'm the lead in South Carolina. And he is not hearing that case anytime soon. If he hears that case in 5 years, I'd be surprised. So the only source of money is going to be the insurers of these polluters under CERCLA upstream. And so we have vast experience with it. We have over 80 people that are just working on environmental cases in our office. We just filed the case in Groveland, Massachusetts, in Peppermill. We're about to file in Weirton, West Virginia. No other lawyers do these types of cases, these CERCLA cases, the way we do them and get big money. It's really not been done before. Just like the opioid case was not done before we got involved. I argued the first 2 motions to dismiss. This has not been done before. We're the first to succeed. I front the money for Greater Augusta, for all the experts. And I'll tell you, at the end of the day, I'm putting up $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million that if I lose, our law firm eats. So you can't do business unless you're going to believe you're going to win. And I'm telling you, these are not only strong cases, but these are the types of cases that we're willing to put our money behind and back up. The CERCLA cases are, just to give it a little perspective, how strong a CERCLA case is. If it was a criminal case, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. In a CERCLA case, it's the exact opposite. You just have to show that these polluters contributed PFAS into the river, and then it may end up in your drinking water and require treatment. That is all you need to do to prove a CERCLA case. And then it comes down to damages and an apportionment of what's called 107 section of CERCLA in apportioning the money between the different contributors. So they do get in a fight with each other, and sometimes they turn each other in. They say, well, you put a little PFAS in the water, and the other one says, no, you did it. And it does. And that's why I was able to get $74 million for a small town on Long Island. You know, I could be having dinner, but I'm here with you guys because I want this case. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, anybody? Bob,
Again, there toward the end, Paul, you stated, down south, or the people downstream of the area and stuff. Can you guarantee that, if I heard right, can you guarantee that the district will not be sued by anybody down south of us? And it's going down further south, going down in Massachusetts, going down those areas. How do we know? Can you guarantee we wouldn't get sued?
You can never guarantee, but like I said, you have an EPA letter that says you're what's called a de minimis contributor. So we could actually, if you got sued by another water provider, we could actually go to the EPA and ask them for a release as a de minimis user, and they would most likely give it. But if there's two ways to look at it too, right? There's always, anybody could always sue you for anything. They can sue you right now. But what's your answer? If you pursue the people upstream, your answer is, it wasn't us. We have an EPA letter that essentially gives us de minimis. It was them. They're responsible. So you're leaving. You need to have your rear covered, and this covers your rear. And the worst that can happen is I get you a lot of money. That's the worst that can happen. That's already not happening to you. So if you decide not to pursue it, you're just going to miss out on that opportunity, because they could sue you anyway now. But I have not seen a single, and I've filed, I said, the most cases of any firm. This S&L firm says they represent I represent thousands of communities around the country in different departments in our office in different ways. This is all we do in our department, me, Coral, and Jay. And we could have had 80 lawyers on here.
I don't like to win a war and lose the whole battle.
Neither do I.
I don't want to lose a battle. I mean, to win a battle and then lose the war. So is it worth this step here and then losing everything further down the line? That's what I'm trying to get in my mind.
I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. There's nothing that says if we don't join this, that someone doesn't sue us now. They aren't, us joining this or doing this and getting sued later are not tied to each other. I think there's also, and I'm not the one that's going to explain the intricacies of tort law here, but we are not the same as a corporation that sits on the river and pumps PFAS into it. We're a quasi-municipal entity that, in my understanding, is we have similar protections to a municipality as far as how we can be sued and what we can be sued for. Somebody with a JD wants to explain that, you're welcome to. But my point is, we're not a paper mill, and the eyes of the law don't view us like a paper mill. I think we could go for 3 hours, but I am prepared to make a motion to authorize management to start this process if and when you feel that's ready, because I
will ask that.
I just don't think this is one of those things. If we don't do it, and it might not be fun doing it, but if everybody else on the river gets money and we don't, our successors are going to sit here in 30 years and wonder, why the heck didn't they do that?
If everybody else jumps from the building, are you going to jump from the building?
I don't think that's a fair
Yes, I do.
equivalent.
You're saying we should be held to blame if we don't go into this when everybody else is. Do you do something just because everybody else does?
But the thing I'm talking about doing is potentially recovering money for our ratepayers. It's not breaking your legs.
May I add a couple of things? The concern about waiting is a fewfold. One, in the statute of limitations expires, witnesses disappear, and when we file a case, it's important to secure the insurance. A lot of these companies have what's called claims made policies. So when you file the case, that's when the insurance becomes covered. Now, there are some other complications. Sometimes they look back. But now, more and more of these policies are being written with what's called PFAS exclusions. So these insurance companies are getting smart. They're excluding PFAS. So we want to get on record sooner than later to get the insurance company to pay based upon the PFAS. And right now we're a lot smarter than a lot of these insurance companies on these issues because we've been doing it for 8 years. And so it's been a little easier. As time gets on, the cases do get tougher. But Jay, if you don't mind, Jay, take off your Napoli Skolnick hat and put on your former EPA hat. How would you view this wastewater treatment facility based on the letter and the rules compared to a polluter?
Yeah, it's apples and oranges. They're not. First of all, the government is not going to sue the wastewater treatment plant. That's just not going to happen. The federal government or the state government. And I cannot see a private individual trying to sue a wastewater treatment plant. The judges won't stand for it. It's not a viable case. The real viable case here is a town whose drinking water has been contaminated by PFAS suing the actual polluters who are upstream. This is the classic example of the polluter must pay. I went to law school in Vermont, and I hope you don't hold that against me. But that was drilled into me in law school, that principle. And that principle is the same one that we hear the Trump administration say. They say that the polluter must pay. It's not a blue or red state issue. It's just a fundamental moral thing. These costs of cleaning up the pollution should not be passed on to the ratepayers. And here, I think, with CERCLA, we have a very strong case. We have a good case. These wells, they're close to the river. They're designed by nature to pull in river water. We're not going to go after anyone. We're going after known entities that we feel very strongly have used PFAS and used PFAS for decades and probably knew about it.
Hey, Pete, you had a question.
Actually, two things. Paul, I'm not aware of, I've worked on some CERCLA sites. I'm not an attorney, but I'm not aware of a statute of limitations. And if there is one, when is it? And then the second question, and that goes both to Paul and this discussion, is, are there other plaintiffs along the Kennebec River who you would like to represent? If we don't get involved, or are you aware of any other lawsuits along the Kennebec River? So two things: statute of limitations, when is that? And second, are there other potential plaintiffs for your case?
Yeah, so the statute of limitations is dependent on two words that are very similar: removal and remediation, right? And whether or not what you're doing is removal or remediation. And one is 3 years and one is 6 years. What makes this more complicated is the fact that you have PFAS listed as a hazardous substance within the last 3 years. And there are some places that started to do treatment and do remediation prior to the enactment as a hazardous substance. So there are defendants who are arguing that the statute ran prior to the listing as a hazardous substance. It eventually comes down to the judge's interpretations of the statutory CERCLA arguments, and it's different in different jurisdictions. And in different jurisdictions, judges can read things in different ways. So as a lawyer, we always try to be super conservative. And what we believe is that filing a case before May of 2026 is the best approach in these cases, particularly where it's been in the water before, or there's been any remediation or money spent on it prior to May of 2026 within those periods.
Paul, you didn't answer my question though. My question was, you said 3 years or 6 years. I'm not sure from what.
So 3 years is for.
Yes, let me finish, please. Is there a specific month and date beyond which this case would be able to happen?
No. not that I can tell you what that specific date is and feel like I'd be comfortable with it, exactly for the reasons that it becomes down to the action, whether it's removal or remediate action, and whether or not money was spent and where it was found in the wells. So to be conservative, we're advising the clients like yourself that we recommend to file it before May of 2026. And we're doing our damnedest to file as many as we can before then.
And then the second half are there other potential plaintiffs, or if someone came up to you and asked, would you bring them on, or do you like this just being us?
Off the top of my head, I represent about 3,000 water providers in cities around the country. We probably have about 300 or 400 of these that that are big enough that we intend on filing. In Maine, Jamie, I don't know who other than Lewiston and Augusta, Greater Augusta, that we represent right now, other than in opioids, partially because we're going around now talking about CERCLA. I know we represent other water providers. I just don't have it offhand. After the call, we can give you a list of who they are.
Thanks.
Bob.
Mike, Mr. Hyde, I'm turning to you. I want to hear your words of wisdom, sir.
Gotcha. Bob, was that you?
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, how are you? So yeah, I mean, I have to defer to Paul and Jamie. And sorry, Jamie, but I would say definitely Paul on the sort of on some surplus stuff and that sort of thing. You know, part of this, and I've talked to Ken about it a little bit. It's somewhat it's a PR or it's a policy decision for you folks whether you pursue this. I also heard people, it might have been Jamie, talking about sort of the ratepayers and what do folks expect, and that's always, you know, an important consideration. A couple things that were new to me tonight when Paul said that the EPA had issued the letter 2 years ago. That was important for me to hear, in part because I have another client that has a similar issue with a municipality that might have introduced some PFAS, and that was actually important to know. I didn't know that. The concept has been thrown around of, you know, whether this comes back to somehow bite Greater Augusta. The reality is, I think, as someone also said, somebody might raise a claim against GAUD, whether or not you file suit or join this class action or whatever you do. It could happen. There's nothing to prevent it. Again, I think the EPA letter was probably important, although I'm not sure that bars a private citizen's claim or in a private entity. There may be somebody downriver, Gardner or whoever's downriver, who might say, well, you know, GAUD sort of discharged PFAS, but I think the bigger issue is, so where did it come from? Because you're only discharging it because it came from some other source. So the other I think important thing that Paul said, and this is where I'd again defer to him, and that he's correct on the standard burden of proof, because the issue came up early on or the other day, whether or not we could prove who produced the PFAS, who discharged it, so how did we accumulate it? And what I heard Paul say is that the burden of proof in CERCLA cases is pretty low. It's basically, it's almost like an asbestos case, where if you introduce it and there's some evidence that somebody develops mesothelioma, well, you're on the hook for whatever small part you cause. I see Paul nodding, so I think I'm kind of getting that right. If you can show that it's introduced by somebody into the water, then you can at least show that they're a contributor, that they might have to pay. So at least the burden is low in terms of what I think the district or other plaintiffs would have to would have to prove. And then the last thing I'm going to add, and it's kind of a question to Paul, to his group, is because I also heard the question about, well, there might be other sludge cases out there. So Paul and Jamie said that you're considering bringing a case for, the wastewater treatment and, the cost of sludge disposal. And I know Keith mentioned that as well, that others are talking about that. So I guess my question is, and I'm going to make a statement and somebody else can, I guess, respond if I'm wrong. I don't know that you're barred from joining that case as well. Not that you want to be the most sue-happy water district in the state of Maine, but you've already brought one claim against the manufacturers, got some money for that. I don't think you're barred from bringing a claim as a sanitary district sewer treatment plant, that now your costs have gone up because of that as well. So I don't know that you have to go one way or the other here tonight. You can make a decision later on the sewage.
So we have filed, as I said, a number of wastewater treatment cases against the manufacturers. We can file that within the next week. I would say tomorrow, but I know Coral's got a lot going on tomorrow, but in the next week. I wrote the complaint that everybody else is copying with Coral and with Jay. So that's easy. So so our firm has been doing this, like I said, for a while. So we got retained also by the National Rural Water Association that represents 35,000 drinking water. I can get a recommendation from them, but they also represent wastewater treatment facilities. And we have been working with them on trying to get a bill in Congress passed, which is not easy to do these days, to exempt wastewater treatment and firefighting facilities and drinking water from being subject to suit, even by the guy doing gardening down the river. When we couldn't get that, we lobbied the EPA to get the letter. That's why I know about the letter. There's still hope for getting a bill passed in Congress, and I've gotten bills passed in Congress. I got it for the 9/11 victims. I got passed in Congress. Nobody said we could do. So you get that from us for free. We don't charge anybody. We're just out there helping our clients and doing that. We also have a PR department. So if you're concerned, there's really two ways to go. If we file a case against the polluters, one way to go is you file a press release and say, we are pursuing for the community the polluters. And some mayors and some boards love that. Groveland just did one yesterday. They said, we want to be ahead of it. Williamsburg, New Jersey is about to do it. They want to get ahead of it so the constituents know they're not sitting on their hands, they're doing things. Sometimes other places say, no, just file it. And if the news picks it up, we'll have a statement and be reactive. So we will help you with both for nothing, the lobbying and the PR. We deal with it all, and even ideas, because a lot of our experts, like a hydrogeologist, also do treatment facilities. So they'll, for free, talk with your environmental team, whether they're third party or in-house, and give ideas of things they've seen that worked in pilot programs around the country, because they've done some of the first ones, not only on drinking water, but on wastewater, like ideas to reduce the cost. And again, that's just coming from our experience. And, I've been doing this. I'm second generation. My father's 83, still practicing law. My wife is a lawyer. She doesn't want me to practice law anymore. She said, retire already. I'm doing this not as much as for the money of the opioids, but because this is God's work. This is good. This, like you guys sitting on the board, this is good work. So we have all these things in place, and I really think we could help you. The worst that could happen, because of contingency contract, I spend a lot of money and don't go anywhere. But the best that could happen, which I feel strongly about, is I'm going to get you a lot of money. And Jamie sitting there knows, because we did it in opioids. I think we got the whole state a lot of money in opioids. Back me up, Jamie. Come on.
Oh, I can tell you, that's exactly right. It's a novel idea. Instead of all those distributors and manufacturing settling with the state saying they told us to give you some of the money and trickle down. It was his firm that says, no. We're gonna sue on behalf of Augusta and the county and all the stakeholders and got them all into the class action. So when it came time for settling, we had to negotiate with the state, but we were at the table. You can't take all the money and decide whether and how we're gonna get it. And he did get them, and I know a lot of people, it's a small town, small state. Every friend of mine that's on a municipal board or on the city, with all the city, is so grateful that they got involved because it's helping them in the trenches, and dealing with in the streets. And then the only thing I'd say is what Paul's saying is he's filing wastewater claims against the manufacturers, but it's not part of the class action yet, because I think what he said is the judge handling the 3M water side is going to address a wastewater aspects later, but that doesn't prevent wastewater claims from being filed. And ultimately that's what's going to happen next, in addition to the water, which has been happening. It's going to be wastewater. He said it's going to be airports. It's going to be fire trainings for each municipality. It's all going to happen over time. So, well,
Paul, for my information, how many people have you guys gotten to agree to move forward in Maine in this project you were talking about here?
I have to run the list, but nationwide we have about 300 or 400.
I need to know about Maine. I don't care about nationwide.
I don't, in drinking water, I'm not sure how many we represent. Coral, could you sort of take a look?
We started the process of trying to get water districts in Maine. We have gotten you when we filed 3M claim. I represent another one that doesn't have very well. I've made overtures to several others. But this other firm, who I know nothing about, other than the fact that I see their emails, last things I know, is trying to get more. But so right now, and I've made overtures to another one on the river and had some preliminary discussions, and I'm going to follow up with that. So we're continuing to work it. But if it's like anything else, once one signs up, you get another one and you get another one. And I'm meeting with a very large water facility tomorrow.
So the answer is none? So
no. Yeah.
Okay. And they are under the same May 26th deadline?
Yeah.
It depends on where they locate. Location, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say, when you're in a class action, the way it works is it's like a wholesale settlement, right? So you're lumped in, you're one person representing 1 million other people. That's where you get the $2 check in the mail. You do not want to be part of a class action. You want to be an individual case, because then you get the 20 million, the 100 million dollars for wastewater treatment. You have to address wastewater treatment in two ways. You have to look at wastewater treatment, what's coming in. You have to get the companies that are putting into your system to put GAC on their side, so less PFAS is coming in. But you also have to deal with the leachate and the outflow and potentially put GAC on that end of the equation. And that's more expensive than drinking water. I mean, ultimately what was going on was there was about to be, and I don't have to tell you, about to be regulations at the federal level for wastewater treatment, and that got put on hold with this administration. But eventually it's going to come back around, and particularly because Maine and our governor in Maine and our attorney general are very proactive when it comes to PFAS. I mean, I remember talking to her when she was AG about PFAS, not too long ago in her office in Maine with Jamie.
So I would say anybody else, let's get some more questions. Brad, I'll certainly call for a vote if you want. I've heard some things tonight that are new to me, that I wouldn't mind considering a little bit, but I will call the vote tonight.
I'm more than happy to make a motion, and I love democracy. If it gets shot down, I'm still gonna eat dinner.
Okay.
I hope you can too, Paul. I move to authorize management of the district to engage with Napoli-Skolna to pursue PFAS litigation.
I hear a second on that. Don't hear a second on that. So I go back and ask the question again is, I heard some things tonight that I didn't know before tonight. I personally, as one person, would like to think about that and ask a couple questions, but I understand there's a date certain. Yeah, I get that.
I
So-
guess I'm still not clear on what the specific date is and what's it based on. And is there a day in May? Do we have a meeting before the deadline in May?
Well, okay, I'll ask Jamie, but I think I heard, I thought I heard it May.
He's triggering it based on the change. He's the expert. Paul, I want to know what you're triggering the May date off of, and I think it has to do with the statute that.
It was listing as a hazardous substance, PFAS, PFOA and PFAS as a hazardous substance. It's a conservative date that would not trigger a dismissal based on the statute of limitation. Could it be longer? Yes. It could be longer based upon what treatment you put in place and how many dollars you spend going into the future. But it's certainly a conservative date. Us, the lawyers do not like playing around with, $20-30 million claims and making a mistake by a single day. That's, not a good thing.
So based on that answer right there, we have a meeting in April, this is March. We've gathered enough information. We've had these people on a couple of times. I think they've really come up to play tonight. I've heard talk to our corporation counsel. I think that you can say you have one. I hear one of our trustees say we should do it tonight. I respect that, but I do think we have time to have one more shot at this or not. And just trying, so I would say. I don't know what the feeling of the board is. I'll do whatever. Otherwise, not, it hasn't moved anywhere tonight.
I'd use that conversation's wrap for tonight. It's 7:20 and we got the rest of our agenda.
I just got one quick question. I got Paul and Jamie here. Not to beat this dead horse, but Hutchins and I have been to Superior Court before, and it wasn't a lot of fun. What level of effort do you guys envision for personnel that work at the utility district to have to go in and make statements about, how much PFAS is in the water and what did we know and when we know? I mean, what kind of subject matter experts are we? Because really, we fill the bottles and then we know how much PFAS is in the water. So I just don't know what level of effort you folks expect from utilities like ours. So if you could,
Sure.
that'd be great. Thanks.
So we're aware that you're in the business of delivering water and not litigation. So we minimize it. Our team will recover the documents and things we need in the beginning with little effort. And this is a very expert dependent case. So most of the testimony and findings will come from experts and from the geology that is out there. There'll probably be a deposition from the superintendent of the water district. He would have to help, and we would prepare him. So it would probably be 1 or 2 days. The case would be filed in federal court, and Jamie and I were talking about it earlier. It'd probably be in Bangor because it's circular cases of federal statute, and federal statutes would end up in federal court. And those judges tend to be very organized in federal court, and they move the cases pretty swiftly. So that would be to our benefit.
Understood. Thank you.
Cecil, do you have questions on?
Yeah, we're gonna remediate the problem that we have coming from Riverside, correct?
Correct.
Go to 0 or not perceptible measurement. Once we do that, we've solve your PFAS problem as far as that well is concerned, those wells over there. The other side of the river, we don't have PFAS in there, or do we?
We have very low detectable wells in
Undetectable.
front of, well,
No, he said low
detectable.
Okay,
Detectable.
so, okay, so that we also, I'm looking at harm. You know, what's the impact of this going forward on us? We've been harmed. Well, could they argue that, well, you've taken care of it, so we don't have to bother with you?
Well, we haven't taken care of
It's
it.
not taken care
No,
of.
no, we have to maintain it forever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Well,
cost, a lot of cost to that.
Long-term harm is financial.
Make sure you got an argument.
Yeah, the long-term harm is whatever it's gonna cost us to operate the filters. And they're gonna wear out, and we're gonna have to
Okay.
replace them.
Just want to make sure
Yeah,
there's an
correct.
argument that would stand up.
Absolutely. That's a great question. But absolutely, you can make that argument. And it's a financial one.
And there's a disposal problem, you know, we accumulated on the
Okay,
media.
fine, I got the answer. Thank you.
Okay, so from the board, we have everybody here tonight. I'll say whatever I want to say. If you guys want to put it on the agenda next month one more time, we can do it. But it's a do or die, or we go back to Brad's and bring it back up again.
I move that this thing be brought up in April.
We either do it, we need to. We
Oh, I'll
don't.
second that.
I think I would like to see it
I'll
come
second.
back again in April.
I'll second.
Okay. I don't have, I think we got enough information, and Jamie's here, if we need some stuff, I don't think we need to put the whole thing, but I have heard some things tonight that are a little bit. So I'm ready. I'm speaking as Ken. April works for me.
Just unrelated, I don't know if now's the time, but this other law firm, New Hampshire, was interested in speaking to the board. I don't know whether we need to be on the agenda next month or.
It's a public meeting, anybody's welcome to come, as far as how I see that.
Okay.
I think I would entertain these peoples and say kind of,
I'm sorry.
these people that started with us that make him do both, that's some interest to me.
Okay.
Because they were here and I think they put some time.
Oh,
in.
yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying one or the other.
I appreciate that, and, let's do that. So April, we'll have at it. So I want to thank everybody and thank Paul and everybody on the air, Mike and Jamie here, especially. Much appreciated for that. Sorry to be a little elusive tonight, but this is a big deal for everybody. I think you sense that. Just trying to do the right thing here.
Thank
Thank
you very much, for board members for listening to us. We appreciate
Much
that.
appreciated.
Well, thank you for listening to our questions.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Jamie, thank you. Thank you guys. Yeah. Okay. Moving on, guys, as Brad said, we need to get going tonight, so let's get on with the project update for Andy.
So what, we back?
Well, sorry, I'm just breaking presentation. One. Seriously. Great. So Riverside Drive, our filtration facility or removal facility. We are, the shell of our building is finalizing this week for the exterior. So we've got metal roof, the curtain here, all that stuff is in place. Everything is almost complete. And then the interior surfaces need to be finished, like paint and stuff like that. Our crews are getting ready to move those.
Can I just ask you a quick question? Have we received any grants for the PFAS? We have,
Yes,
we have everyone, from the state or from the federal?
We have, it comes through an EPA grant, two of them, one in the amount of almost 5 million, another in the amount of 4 million. And we also applied for drinking water SRF that gives us forgiveness money. So I've got a slide later on to show that we've got about $15 million secured to deal with, you know, finding water uncontaminated or treating it.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So we did a real hybrid approach to this installation to try to keep our costs fairly low. We've got a building that has a footprint We stripped out an old generator. We're gonna cram these 6 units in there to treat as much water as we can from that aquifer. Our other hybrid solution was to go find water elsewhere, uncontaminated, and I've got, you know, a plan a little bit later on to show that. This project, we've procured most of our equipment, piping, fittings. We are hoping to have this online this summer, hopefully early this summer, but we're hoping to start. We're going to receive all our piping, fittings, and valves by mid-April. So we're well along, and I'm excited about our progress. So things are going good.
Can I ask a question about the filtering system? Is that, it's a supplier for that? Where's that coming from?
A while back, I presented a range of bids to the board. ECT2, they're out of, well, they have a shop in Portland. They won the bid. It's roughly $800,000 for the media, the 6 vessels, and some of the piping manifolds. That stuff all gets, you know, put in place. They help us commission it. We go through performance testing. There's a performance warranty on that. We bid it against another system supplier, Evoqua. There's Clearwater. And there's one more that I can't remember. There were 4 manufacturers that could give a, and we chose the media. We pilot tested, we did the science to select the media ahead of time, so they all knew exactly what they had to provide.
Okay, so I'm looking at the supplier and the source. Where is it coming? Where are those filters coming from? The domestic?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah, it has to be. So part of these grant requirements is that we buy America, build America.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, all the metal, even the electronics, to any extent we can, is supposed to be.
I only ask that because of what's going on now in the world, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad we've already procured.
Bob, good question.
More to say on the thing, and it's directed to Meredith. Point us, as Andy pointed out, he's got the $5 million and $4 million grant. You've got stuff that's going to be plus money and forgiveness. I think it's important, again, to show that to the ratepayers, the work that you guys are doing to bring the dollars to save this and be able to do the stuff they're doing. I just think it's an important thing.
Especially when I'm going to do a rating.
Right. I just tag on. Is it, such as it is, the newspaper, is there kind of thing going to happen when you have this online? I mean, you get them in there.
Yeah, I would imagine once we have everything up and running and we know it's working properly. We started out, I don't know, back in 2024 in November. I like to say we're about 6 months late on where I'd like to be on this timeline. And he's talking about early summer. It's my number 1 priority to get this up and running as soon as possible because we're in drought conditions. But for all that reason, it makes sense for us to do a little horn tooting when the time is right. So once that's up and running, we can verify everything's working. Then it makes sense for us to have a little dog and pony show and involve our funding partners so they can pat themselves on the back as well. Wouldn't happen without it. And to Bob's point, it's
Send the TV down here.
Whatever it takes. Andy's great on the TV. So he did all this work.
Just the media.
So the second part of my okay to keep going.
Yes.
So the second part of the PFAS solution, or to mitigate it, was to go find a new source. We've been exploring North Augusta. There's some city property that we've been exploring on. We found water, adequate supply, good material, good geology. It was about 500,000 gallons a day. We're looking for more to meet up our capacity that we lost at Riverside. So we also found background levels of PFAS at that first site. So we drilled in another location with a little bit different influence from the aquifer. And we're it passes, both state and federal limits. But when we report the very minute, fractions of contamination, we're still finding it. So it's getting us to expand our look to a place that we already know about, that we're gonna bring back up a little bit later in executive session to talk about, but we feel that there's more opportunity a little further. So,
So in terms of these low levels of P, I'm talking about parts per trillion, a couple parts per trillion, and you eliminated whether it's from the well contamination or it's just.
yeah,
It's in the
actually, you
water.
see that figure right there. We had some flexible hose that connected that, and we were testing out that, thinking, gosh, do we contaminate? Because yes, we're talking part per trillion.
Right.
And we confirmed it wasn't us. It wasn't how we constructed the well. It wasn't, we tracked it right down to the pipe tape, the pipe dope, all the stuff that assembles, even the PVC piping, we looked at everything. And yes, we pulled multiple samples to confirm presence. So yeah.
That's pretty far away from any development too.
Yeah, it surprised me as well.
I've seen sites where it's migrated thousands of feet, so.
I feel like we might be dealing with it could have been the fire department used to, do drills out in the gravel pit, that we're now studying. So I don't know the full history of that area, but these are only guesses. So I feel like at some point that contamination will clean up. It's just hard to commit to a source that.
Right,
Randy, I asked the question, I think you guys are definitely going in the right direction doing this. I know we're gonna talk about something in that, but I always go back to, we have a surface water plant. And I get there's a lot that goes along with that, and it's probably if you have more money than God, the thing to do, but I talk to the districts, and they go like, boy, wish we'd gone back to surface water, and that's not so. Again, I just say that, and we don't have to debate it tonight, but I guess you guys probably thought about that already. Okay, move on.
So, Brooks and St. Catherine, we're gonna be ramping that project up this spring. I think it'll start in April. Nothing to report on the front line for upgrades. Other than our environmental review document needs more work. We were hoping for a categorical exclusion, but we've got to do a deeper dive into environmental studies. Davenport is going to be starting soon. Basically, when the frost lets out of the ground and we get authorized to get in city streets, we'll start that one. So we'll have an earlier completion date than anticipated, shooting for June. Our contractual date is doing good there. Amherst, that was supposed to be out to bid a long time ago. Sorry, it's slight repeats, but as you can tell, we've been swamped with PFAS mitigation, so this should go out this week to bid. So hope that update next board meeting. Memorial Drive, so our rates on the stormwater side, we're talking about, this project alone, I'll show you the next figure. So this orange line is, I have to put that line in just to do any piece of this project. So this is Memorial Drive you're staring at, and that's the Memorial Drive, Western Ave, roundabout. So this first part, the orange line is down here, the first row. You're roughly 700,000 just to get that in. That doesn't consider other factors that will inflate costs, like traffic control. These are still unknown, so it could easily be $1 million. This is what I'm saying. And then all these other colors are alternates off that, and they all have cost implications. So what I'm trying to say in this figure, and I know you guys want to move along, but we're looking at a $2 to $3 million job to get through the rotary to remove up to 60 catch basins worth of flow eventually. So we're also going to apply for clean water funding. Hopefully we'll rank high because we're going to mitigate combined sewer overflow with this project. I'm hoping to get forgiveness money on top of that, so.
And that yellow line, is that Western Avenue?
This yellow line is another alternate to the route.
Oh, that's
And
Walgreens.
we could go through Walgreens.
Yes. Just
where-
give them away the way it's
That's
hard
the
to
old,
see.
Yeah.
that's the old Walgreens right there.
But it's a huge savings in this because MDOT's picking up a lot of
Well,
the.
that's the huge thing. When I said earlier that we're gonna spend all that money we have saved up, it's gone. In that orange pipe, you'll be down to nothing in a year. We have to do this in 2027. MDOT has 8 one-week shutdowns planned. Andy was talking about trying to time this with construction and everything. This is a gift from the heavens that they will shut down all traffic from the rotary to the bridge. And we'll be able to dig like crazy in those 8 one-week periods. And that'll save us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's incumbent upon us to make certain that we're in DOT's pocket with this and make sure that we can coordinate our work at the same time as they are. They are notoriously unreliable in terms of schedule. They're just, their engineers are great, and I know loads of people at DOT, and then something happened at the federal level and everything gets blown up. So, we have to then pivot. Anyway, the success of this project largely depends on that. And then the financing piece that Mike and I have talked about is if we can burn cash down to do this, which is why we have it in the first place. And then we can also weigh that against what happens if we borrow interest only, and then 2031, when that debt service comes off from the park, then we could add it. I only want to do that if the debt service comes down. The Fed's looking at a single rate decrease perhaps this year. They're talking about 3 up until 3 weeks ago, so nobody knows where that's going to go. But it's wise to put our name in to see if we rank high on those projects. Maybe there's some grant money too. The really difficult stretch is going to be if you look at the yellow alternative. It's extremely difficult to deal with the Walgreens people, some LLC out of Delaware. So we're going to need our attorneys to talk to them. We will probably have to use the threat of eminent domain to get their attention. So because we can take it if we need to, because it's a public benefit. The red line to me has some appeal, but then getting under the rotary and into the rotary, there's already concern that we might have to trim some tree branches. I mean, this is the minutia we're at some of this. Well, Mike, we'll buy you a new tree. I'll buy you a bunch of trees. This is the only, I have to get the project done. And then we have to cross the rotary again over at the corner by Kennebec Savings. And of course, their project to build a new structure starts likely this summer, I understand it. So there's a lot that's happening. Anybody who can, with an ounce of an imagination can look at those old postcards that are really pretty, where we had elm trees and everything, and it was beautiful. And that really was a park that you could get to the monuments and everything and go visit them. And now, of course, you can't, it's isolated, but imagine all the pipes and trolley tracks and everything that we're going to find in the course of the project, and time delays and change orders. It's staggering. So hence all the alternatives, trying to consider every possible route that we can do to avoid some litigation with the Walgreens people and take benefit of this gift from DOT. If you said we would get that, I would have laughed in your face, but here it is. So
This southern side, sorry to interrupt, right? But the southern side, we're like 17 feet in the ground, put 30-inch pipe in, just perspective. And so that's why we're looking at the magenta line as well. It's a little bit shallower, a little bit easier on traffic, shutting down Water Street's a little bit more doable. But we still need the orange line in there just to get us to remove all of the combined flow that comes in from here. So we have public water all the way up here that we have to take care of. So yeah, we've been busy dealing with that. Maya has been doing a great job in the office trying to put 4 designs forward. we haven't found the silver bullet yet that solves all the problems easily. So we're digging our teeth.
my favorite part about this project, I'm going to shut up, it's not PFAS related.
Yeah.
Point well taken.
Eastern Avenue, we're trickling design forward just to prepare over public pipe. And that's all I have.
Just to back up, that Eastern Ave project, just over a mile of pipe is gonna be close to $4.5 million. So, the budget we have right now is 2.2, so that'd be somebody like that, 2.5 years of our water and doing really nothing else, just to do that one junk of pipe. Puts it in perspective, what kind of costs we're looking at here. They're staggering. And we're doing our best we can to manage them, but it's starting to keep me up nights that there's an awful lot to do. I don't know if you saw the news this weekend with, there's a massive main break in Lewiston, right out of the road. So we're not the only ones dealing with this, and we're in great shape compared to a lot of people.
So I met with the city manager last week. I asked him to really come prepared to our planning session, because I said, this isn't a one-time, this is ongoing. And I said, they gotta be prepared for it. So, I mean, I understand it's just water only, I understand that we'll do this, but that's something that we wanna make sure we do, because let's be very vocal about this going. We always are, but I think we need to have people's attention for, and go all along, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a lot of surprise people. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and now, the good stuff, employee anniversaries, Mike Sarek is I'm gonna take this out of order a little bit. Mike has only been working for us part-time now for 2 years, but a lot of the paint that you see that looks refreshed in here in the hallway downstairs, we're really trying to spruce up this building a lot. It's 100 years old this year, and it's pretty cool that we're able to actually sit up here now and not worry about falling through the floor. That was an extreme concern a few years ago. We used to park trucks here, and the engineering guy from what had occurred and just kind of shivered. We said, please not do that ever again. That would be great, because that concrete on the floor is super thin. And anyway, so Mike's been here in his retirement. He does our hydrant maintenance in the summer, which is great. He knows his way around hydrants. And he and his wife have been doing some painting and light work that's just fantastic to keep this place looking good. Israel Pulpit is our CCTV guy. That stands for closed circuit TV. And if you think of it as a sewer robot, it sounds way cooler. And that's what we have to tell the kids, so they want to come work through it. It's basically a video game from the truck. It's kind of like those movies where you have the spies and the band. That's kind of what those guys are. It just smells worse in that band, I think. So, but Israel's been with us for 8 years and been fantastic. It's a great crew. Yeah, he's really leveled us up an awful lot, so really appreciate his efforts there. What do we got next? Oh, okay, so the bad news, we had a drinking water violation. This may sound a little bit familiar, slightly different. We did everything we were supposed to do, but because I didn't send a form in on time, we have a violation. I said, you're kidding me, do we not have a violation? I begged as best as I could. They said, no. I said, well, next year, when it's mid-December and I don't have this in, can you please remind me? And then okay, get it in. Anyway, that goes to the bottom of our consumer conflicts report. We did everything we're supposed to do. We notified everybody we're supposed to do. And the only thing I didn't do, it's nobody else's fault but mine, is send the state form that says that I did everything I was supposed to do, even though I sent them all the stuff to prove that I did what I was supposed to do. It annoys me. That's okay. A second annoyance is we had a couple accidents, and as a result of that, and unfortunately, some inspections that were done that they found the Department of Labor's SHAPE program. We've been in it for probably a decade or more now. We got kicked out of that, for a lack of a better term, because we had some recurring hazards, as we may have talked about before. That modine thing up on the top, that was cited as a hazard a while back because it didn't have a vacuum system on the back of it, so you couldn't reach up inadvertently and put your hand in it and power it on and cut it off. This is the kind of stuff that we're looking at, and I'm like, okay, well, we'll put a cover on that. Some other stuff, knockouts, the round things on an electrical panel. We're doing electrical work, and the guys never put that back on there. Years go by, I'm like, hey, you should have a cover on that, right? We should. And anyway, stuff like that. So we're meeting with them on Wednesday on a Zoom call, because I just want to understand what it is that we can do better. Some of the things I disagree with, I'm not looking to go back in time. I just don't like to lose. So we're gonna chase that to ground a little bit better. John and Jason have been really doing yeoman's work on that, and I just feel also bad for them because they're disappointed as well. So we want to get back into it. It'll just be about a year, but if we're gonna do it next time, then we want to win. So those are the kind of the bad news pieces on the regulatory side. There's nothing wrong with SHAPE not being in it, it just means that if Department of Labor shows up now and announce they can find us and do all those things where we couldn't, that doesn't happen here in Chief. We lost a young engineer. He didn't die or anything. He just moved to Massachusetts. It's almost the same outcome for us. Great guy. Really like him a lot. And he's a mechanical engineer, but he was telling his civil chops pretty good. I thought we had him converted. But there's a young lady in Massachusetts as it happens, and he's going back to his mechanical engineering roots to be a little closer to her, and also kind of get back into a higher paying career, I think. So it's great. Love the guy. Wish him all the best. And I'm going to miss him. This other stuff, we had a emergency action plan for our dam. Everybody's seen, maybe Tim, you haven't seen the dam. Sometime we'll go. Have you seen the dam?
Yeah, where is it?
Again, Keith has this, all right, we're going on a road trip this spring. You're gonna go see the dam. You have not seen the dam? Oh my gosh, this is gonna be an event. You guys.
It's on the Canada?
Oh, no. Oh, no. That's slide 72. No, it's just on. But
Just still waiting for the permit for that.
yeah, we're working on it. So that plan's every 2 years. It's a fun time to put that together. We've done 2 of the 3 countywide emergency response meetings. They're all day and really don't have much of anything to do with me. So I just work on networking the whole time and keep close I can. But it's positive to get everybody in the county together, all the different towns and whatnot. So, and I will say that it just shows how professional Augusta is. And if you ever need anything from police and fire, they are lights out. Excellent people. Can't say enough good things about them. We're lucky, real lucky. We're starting our PFAS quarterly sampling, which is a regulatory thing. So
because of the triangle wells?
Yes, on the triangle side. We're just up for that now. We did a sample in 2022.
Oh, it's not because of a detection, it's just.
Correct. Yeah, this is just routine and it's part of the new regulatory stuff. I just want to keep you posted on that. And as we get those results from our website, because this is a regulatory side, we're obviously not testing anything herbicide because we have no way to test it. And we won't until the filters are in. And then finally on page 33, I'm not going to reiterate that, but what I wanted to do this year is just every quarter go through all the areas that we have and just kind of give you an update as to where we're at. It's easy to forget, and then it's October, and then here we are December, and what do we do? Are we on track? Are we not on track? So I'll put that in there. If anybody has any questions about it, certainly let me know. Generally, we're on track. There's a couple of things that need to start and get moving on.
Thank you for coming to Hallville City Council meeting.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think I told everybody I accidentally ghosted the mayor and I had to eat some crow for that. And I see him at the Y all the time, so he reminds me. But, very gracious and that's one of the things.
Let's move on with finance.
Just a quick update on the 2024 audit. I did hear from Tim Gill, March 11th or so, and he estimated they should finish the financials by the end of the month. I know they're working on it. They go back and forth with the lead auditor a few times, so.
Good news.
Yes, some more to come on that, but at least it's an update. Okay, so on financial statements. So starting with water division, our revenue is at 3 million as at the end of the month. That's about 2% below budget, and we're about 16,000 above same period last year. Expenses are at 750,000, and that's also about 2% below budget and 27,000 below last year. Cash flow started the month at 5.6 million with 467,000 as operating. O&M expenses were 268,000 and capital project expenses were 131,000, ending the month at 5.7 million. Sewer division revenues at 1.1 million. That's a 3% below budget and about 4,000 below where we were last year. Expenses 760,000. That's about 3% under budget and about 41,000 below same point last year. Cash started the month at 1.9 million. I had 531,000 operating revenues. O&M expenses were 518,000 and at capital project expenses of 193,000. That brought cash down to 1.7 million. Division, our revenues at 649,000. That's about 2% below budget, and about 52,000 below last year. Expenses running at 445. That's about 2% below budget, and 16,000 below same point last year. And cash started the month just below 3 million. We had 260,000 in operating revenues. One expenses were 133,000 and ended the month a little higher at 3 million even in cash.
Okay, any questions for Mike?
No
liens
this month.
Okay, moving on, and communications update, Meredith Strang Burgess.
He's still.
Here. Oh, I know.
We skipped to Alan real quick.
Oh my God, you guys caught me. I was enjoying the amazing information here flow. And when you guys get serious and get cracking here. Good evening, everybody. I've been taking lots of notes. Here we are, the biggest thing that we're going to work on, thanks to your vote tonight, is getting ready for a public hearing, which is going to be on April 27th. And we have, we will update the website and get the insert going because we've got to get that crack-a-lackin'. Brian, I just put that all together and sent you that, which I know you're just going to be want to do that tonight before you go to sleep. And we will put all that together. And I really am going to do a spring newsletter, and I would love to get it out there. We will talk about infrastructure, how important all of that wonderful stuff that's under the ground. Talk about infrastructure. We'll talk about our new PFAS treatment, the wells, status of finding new wells. We've got lots and lots to talk about. And I thank you guys. And as always, please, if you have any crazy ideas, even some really great ideas, please share. Open to feedback at all times. I want to just have Christina. So Christina joined us a couple months ago, and she's sort of helping me, backing me up. And at some point through the course of time here, you'll see her. And maybe we'll both come up and see you on my birthday.
You're going up to the meeting with the dog over here. You can sit with us.
Yeah, she needs to come with a dog, apparently.
Hey.
It's nice to meet Christine and all, but the dog in particular.
We got Sally.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, so I mean, for my birthday, Brian said if we actually come, you guys are going to throw me a big birthday party.
Wait, the 27th is your birthday?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's we are now.
Yeah, it's out there. Ken knows that. It's a big.
Randy knows that. We're good to
big
go.
one. I don't think you guys can make a cake big enough. So, with enough candy.
You should see the sewage cake we have. It's amazing.
You have to get the fire department over to put it out.
Oh, I love that. That's good.
Great. Any other thing else for Meredith? We're all set. Thank you, Meredith.
Thanks, guys. Good work tonight.
And thank you, Alan. HR update.
Good evening. We have 3 open positions. One of them we have not advertised because it's a little slow on the utility worker side, so we won't advertise that until the springtime. But we have a meter shop assistant, which we have an applicant that's going through background checks and pre-employment process, which is underway. He clears all that, he'll start. We have an engineering tech 1, as Brian mentioned, open. We've just posted that job, so we don't have any applicants yet. We've pretty much wrapped up the job descriptions from last year, working on the personnel policy manual, and always working on communication and feedback loops internally and externally. And that's
Any questions for Alan? Very good.
I just have one quick one.
Go ahead.
Alan, when are you back in Maine?
I will be back in Maine soil, May 2nd.
All right. Looking forward to it.
It might stop.
Okay.
The snow might stop by then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
right.
It's snowing now.
Okay, moving on. We're gonna go into executive session. I need a motion to go into it.
I'll make motion to go into executive session.
Yep. Pursuant to MRS.
Pursuant to MRS.
Any second on, vote? Second? Yep. For an executive session, so got off to where we need.